Meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Steve Karanen is excused. Kay Wilson is excused. Tweed Schuman.
Amen.
Stacy Hessel. Randy Newman. Mark Helwig. Thomas Duffy. Marshall Savitsky. Brian Bizinet is excused. Chuck Van Etten. Jeff Haney. John Righeimer. Ron Kinsley.
Here.
Ron Buckholtz. John Sarowski. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Number 4, certification, compliance with open meeting laws.
This meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Thank you. Number 5 is the meeting agenda. The agenda is set. Number 6 is public comment. Anybody wishing to speak to the board, we ask that you stay close to 3 minutes so everybody has time to speak. We'll start with Mr. Jim Strandland. Please state your name and address, please.
Thank you. I'm Jim Strandland. I live at 7253 West Moose Lake Club Road in Hayward, Wisconsin. I am a town of Round Lake supervisor, and I would like to address the full board tonight, and Mr. Alvarado as well. A few months back, John Righeimer and Kay Wilson were given the request to research the possibility of a staffed ambulance station in our area. They had a meeting with Mr. Alvarado to discuss this possibility, and as of the last week, to my knowledge, nothing has happened or there hasn't been any more reports. I may be wrong, but that's the last I heard. The northern section of Sawyer County, including the towns of Round Lake, Spider Lake, et cetera, have poor response times when it comes to ambulance services. The town of Round Lake has offered up to 10 acres for a new facility to be built on our property. With the increased outdoor activities, the aging of our constituents, we feel this is a great importance to pursue. Many years back, I was told this was a topic when the town of Ojibwa Station was built. So with the budget talks coming up, the great wealth of the tourist monies coming into our county, I feel now is the time to get some action going on and figure out if there's a way that this can happen. The constituents that you guys all have in the northern part of the county deserve the action, the faster response of the ambulance. And I do believe we have some other people that'll talk some more about this. So, Mr. Kinsley, the rest of the board, I'd ask that you get this on the agenda sometime and continue this discussion for our constituents in the northern part of Sawyer County. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you. Mr. Mike Feldner.
Good evening. My name is Mike Feldner. I live at 11025 Fin and Feather Road, beautiful Moose Lake, Hayward, Wisconsin. And I'm a 20-year member of the Round Lake Fire Department. And I'd like to expand on what Jim said about our ambulance service out here. About 12, 13 years ago, a committee was formed, and I wish I kept notes on this, but I didn't, so I'm sorry, about ambulance service in Sawyer County. At that time, 3 stations were recommended: Hayward, Winter, and Round Lake. We know that the Winter was moved to Ojibwa, which made common sense. That's a good move and everything. The town of Round Lake at that time put 2 additions on their fire hall. One that would house an ambulance, and the second one was a bathroom with shower and living facility, not really living, but people could stay there, and that for an ambulance. That never materialized, came to be because we were told it would have to be staffed by volunteers. And you know how difficult that can be in that. So it's just kind of language there for many a time. So I want to give you 2 examples, 2 stories here right now. On August 30th of this year, we got a 911 call for a gentleman who was unresponsive, 92 years old, at Wolf Island Road. And 2 of us firefighters responded as first responder firefighters. We are not medical first responders, but we do go to help the ambulance, the first responders, and EMTs deal with the emergency in that. We got there, we were contacted with the Ojibwa ambulance that was coming to this call. Now imagine how far Ojibwa is away from Wolf Island Road or Moose Lake and that. And we were told to move this patient, get him ready and that stuff. We also had a call from one of our medical first responders that he was on his way. And luckily we had an EMT who was off, go to his house, get his equipment and respond to this emergency. When he got there, he called the ambulance and said, you gotta get here at 10:33, which is lights and sirens as fast as you possibly can get here. And he put the helicopter on notice. I left and went and set up the helicopter landing zone for this gentleman. I was setting it all up when the ambulance went by, lights and sirens, and believe me, they do an excellent job. This is no bad feelings for them at all. They do an absolute fantastic job in that. I was in contact with the helicopter, brought him in about 5 minutes after the ambulance got to the landing zone. It was so bad that they had to shut down I shut down the ambulance, the helicopter, excuse me, so that they could work on this gentleman in that. They got him stabilized, we got him in the helicopter, they flew him to Eau Claire. The gentleman survived, he's alive today. His 88-year-old wife was there. You can imagine how she felt in that. 2 of our firefighters were nice enough to put her in her car and drive her to Eau Claire, while the other one took his personal vehicle down to Eau Claire to bring this other one back while his parents, her kids came up from Madison to be with them and that. Let's fast forward 2 weeks after that. If this would have happened 2 weeks later, the 2 EMTs that live out in our area were both in Canada fishing. Great for them on vacation. We had no medical first responders in Hunter, Round Lake, or Spider Lake. These are volunteers, they're not on call, they were all gone. I would have been there as a firefighter, working with as best as I can do. I'm CPR, AED, and first aid certified in that. Would this gentleman lived? I don't know. I would hope so. I would tell the ambulance to get the helicopter in the air. I cannot, as a firefighter, call in a helicopter. I can't call it off either, but I can just relay information. This is outrageous, and I encourage all of you people, sometime, beautiful fall weather, jump in your car and drive from Ojibwa to the end of Tewes Road and see how long it takes you to get there. That's on end of Upper A, and the joke is that if you go to the end of Upper A, you're just gonna fall off. It's so far away. And then, or go from Hayward out there. We have a big area out there. We have a lot of tourism. We have snowmobiles, ATVs, cross-country skiers, bikers. These things happen. And it's time now to get this going. I'm a person that gets things done. I hope you people do, and I hope I can come back here next time and say thanks, get it in the works, find the money. This isn't a swing set there. Well, if we have the money, we can do it. They say there was a $235 million economic impact on tourism. We want some of that money. We need that out there, and we need it really, really bad. Thanks for time, and I'm sorry I usually stay for a whole meeting, but I'm gonna leave with bad weather coming in. I want to get back out to Round Lake in case I'm needed out there, okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Louise Langton.
Louise Laydenton, 7442W State Highway 70 in the township of Ojibwa. Good evening. It's been a long time since I've come to a county board meeting in person, and it's the first time that I'm here in your new meeting room, not new to you, but new to me. And I'm sorry that you didn't provide more room for the public, and I hope that you're looking down the road to doing something to fix that, maybe curve your desk in and put more chairs in or something. Because I watch a lot of the meetings online and there's people standing everywhere. When they want to come and address their elected officials, they have to stand. And I don't think that's a good idea. So I'm hoping that you're looking at that. That's number one. Number two is, I spend most of my time at your meetings online because I live far away. And because of that, I have difficulty with finding out how things get on your agendas. And I know you have a policy that they have to go through, like the committee chair, and then the committees bring it to the board and all that. But I don't understand how they get to the agenda. Like, usually, if there's a problem, the problem is stated, and then the committee then would address how to fix that problem. But say, for instance, I'm hearing things on these meetings, virtual, I'm hearing things like, well, we would like to consider having all of the absentee ballots come to the county. And I guess you guys can talk whatever you want, but I'm thinking, well, why would you do that? Is there a problem? I never heard a problem. If there is a problem, the problem should be stated so that those of us who are interested in the public understand why you're addressing it. And if it's just something that it's a pet peeve of one of the members, how does it get on the agenda? And I'm assuming it isn't, or it wouldn't get on the agenda, but I don't know. So please clarify those issues in your meetings, because we have a right as a public to know why you're discussing something. And we will assume that if you're discussing it, it has merit. And if you don't say what that is, how do we know? Number 3, I heard in one of your meetings, I think it was administration, but it could have been finance, that there is a meeting coming up on September 30th of town officials and county board members. But yet when I go on your website, I can't find that meeting. And I want to warn you that no county board member, more than 1 or 2, can be at any meeting hosted at the county level unless it's announced. So I know you can keep to the 48-hour rule, but really, if I want to attend that meeting, I need to know when it is, where it is, and why you're having it, and what's on the agenda. I don't know, I could be wrong. So I want to remind you that you can't meet without saying that. Otherwise, you could violate open meeting laws and the walking quorum rules that 2 of you can't get together and discuss anything unless we know about it. So I don't think there's anything else. But again, congratulations on this awesome meeting room and your completion of this place. And I hope that you look forward into the future of creating a better public attendance site. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Linda Zomer.
Good evening, Linda Zolmer, Edgewater property owner, resident in the village of Birchwood. And my public comments were about something else, but I want to tag on to what Ms. Lathan mentioned about the ability to watch virtually. Sawyer County is truly blessed with the people that serve in your IT department that allow us to participate via Zoom, not just to watch, but to participate in public comment if it's available. And I also want to mention that it's also available for county supervisors to watch. I have heard comments in different committee meetings about maybe the tourist rooming house topic. And gee, they have a lot of questions, and gee, they want more information. And then some of the stuff that they're talking about, if they took the time to watch these videos, they would understand. If you go to the YouTube channel and you look, a lot of those videos have 50 or more views. And I would hope that county supervisors would do their part to follow up on what the ad hoc committee has been doing, and they would understand about septic systems. They would understand the impact on the neighbors. And so I know that you're only for discussion tonight on tourist rooming house, but I would advise supervisors, before you vote, go out there and see what's been said. You can learn a lot. And I think it's a valuable resource for the public and the county board. Now, I also want to tag on to the folks here from the northern part of the county with the ambulance service, because get in line since 6 or more years, or ever since the last ambulance study, the southern part of the county has not well been served. There was, I think, after that 12 or 13-year period, the county did have a study done by an outside firm. They did not include the town of Edgewater. At that time, it was assumed that the Stone Lake ambulance, which is volunteer staffed, would be serving that part of the county, and it's not. I just attended the August Sand Lake Town Board meeting, and the chairman announced that his sister-in-law needed an ambulance, and it was an hour and 20 minutes from Ojibwa. And prior to that, their town clerk had an incident and was in over an hour to get an ambulance from Ojibwa to Stone Lake. So I think when Round Lake made this request of offering up land, that there was supposed to be a reevaluation of the whole ambulance service across the county, and not just number of runs, but the response times. And I think the whole county should be looked at, and just providing 10 acres of land is is a drop in the bucket of as far as what it's going to take to provide service. And then I just maybe with, as far as the last thing is that with the bug tussle deal, BEAD funding is coming up. There are lots of other opportunities to work on systems. And the one thing I have not seen in that 400 and some pages is any guarantee from any entity that even if there was an investment of all these dollars, that what is the assurance that we won't be in the same situation that we've been for the last decade or more? Will the systems work? So please take your time and I think the economics of this doesn't work out and there are opportunities in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody online? Thank you. Number 7, consider approval of the minutes of the previous meeting, our first meeting of August 15th.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Duffy, second by Mr. Righeimer to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Meeting of September 5th. Motion by Mr. Buckle, second by Ms. Hessel to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 8, zoning committee chair report, Mr. Buckles.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The zoning committee will hold, well, we met on, in August, in August. The zoning committee will hold its monthly public hearing tomorrow at 8:30. Last month's meeting, the committee heard one controversial conditional use permit for a bar/restaurant on Sand Lake. There were many people both in support and opposition of the proposed request. After a lengthy discussion, the committee approved the CUP request as a vote of 5-0, with several unique conditions placed on the property for the proposed use. The committee also heard one rezone case, which will be heard next. The zoning department remains extremely busy with land use permits. Numbers now up 42 over the same time last year. And the committee's intentions to start looking at additional ordinance amendments as construction season starts to slow down over the next several months. There is also a planned town chair meeting later this month to go over the zoning timelines and potential amendments as well. Any no other questions, Mr. Chairman? It's my report.
Thank you. Mr. Kowalski.
Yes, we have one rezone case here this evening. This is rezone number 24-011 located in the town of Hayward, parcel 0109412024001. It is 20 total acres, zoned Forestry 1. It is located at 10730 Gord Road, owner Jason Turnbull. The request is to rezone the 20 acres from Forestry 1 to Agricultural 2 to have a hobby farm. As part of the maps and staff report included in your packet, the applicant would still need to meet the requirements of the A2 Agricultural 2 zone district, which does have a cap on the number of animal units that you could have prorated for 40 acres. That is to say not to exceed 15 animal units, one animal unit being a 1,000-pound animal per 40 acres, which would equivalent to 7.5 animal units of livestock, which the average beef cattle being approximately 1,250 pounds would limit it to 6 beef cattle on that 20 acres. The nearest agricultural zone property is immediately to the east of this property where another hobby farming operation is currently occurring. The town of Hayward, as part of their comprehensive plan, show this area as low density residential. The LDR district is to identify areas suitable for housing, that one dwelling unit be on 2 acres of land. Ultimately, the property is currently zoned Forestry 1, which would require a 5-acre minimum. Within the A2 zone district would also require a 5-acre minimum. So the request is actually a higher density than what the town of Hayward already has laid out in their comp plan. With that information, the town of Hayward did approve the request on August 8th, 2024. There were 4 additional notifications sent out to property owners within 300 feet, 0 comments returned. Sawyer County Zoning Committee public hearing August 16th, vote 5-0 of the findings of facts included in my staff report.
Thank you. And Mr. Schuman.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve rezone.
I'll second that.
A motion by Mr. Schuman, second by Ms. Hessel to approve. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Kowalski. Number 9, Public Works Committee, Mr. Helwig.
Good evening. The Public Works meeting was called to order at 6:30 on the 11th of September. Our maintenance, Mr. Haber gave us a report. He informed us about the projects going on in the courthouse, excuse me, including the building of additional sleeping room in the Hayward Ambulance Station. The commissioner gave us a report detailing the roadway projects completed and underway. There's mowing projects are actually completed by, at this time. And he gave us a copy of the online survey brochure / link. So we could check that out if we wanted. The paving is running late due to equipment breakdowns on Monarch's side. We had, for the airport, we had a written report. Mr. Alvarado advised us that the airport remains busy, on target for the 2025 shutdown for the runway project. The equipment used for snow removal and who completes the removal will be reviewed over the next year. There's no updates regarding airport contract renewal at this time. We do have a hangar renewal that Mr. Alvarado will be dealing with here shortly. And the master plan meeting will be October 9th, starting at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Helwig. Mr. Alvarado, you want to take care of the hangar, please?
Yes, what we have is a resolution approving a renewal for Daniel Fandler for his airport hangar site. Original lease was from October 1st of 2004. So the 20-year initial term is run out. And in the lease, there is a 10-year renewal option, which is being exercised. So this approves the lease for another 10 years.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Buckles to approve the hangar lease. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 10, Public Safety Committee, Mr. Buckles.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Safety Committee meeting was held on September 5th. Judge Isham provided a verbal report. We have had 2 judges for over a year now, resulting in lower jail numbers. Recovery court is going well as individuals are now moving through phase 2 of the program. Clerk of Court's office report was given. Ms. Kelsey advised that the jury trial for schedule that day is taking place. The Sheriff's Department report, written report by Lieutenant Rapinski, advised that the volume has increased recently, but is equal to same time last year. They're hopeful in filling the staff vacancies. And a jail report was given by Lieutenant Wohler, advised that the August population was 61.25 and they have an average of 8 sentence inmates. Communication Center, Emergency Management written reports were provided by Mrs. Rapinski, or Deputy Rapinski. The National Night Out was a success, serving about 350 people. The total call volume is up. Clean sweep will take place on September 25th at 2 p.m. at the fairgrounds. 2 search and rescue calls ended up positive results. The code enforcement specialist was given by Chaz Olson. They continue to work on facility upgrades and currently completing painting. An animal ordinance was a discussion, enforcement of the cats and procedures. I'm not going to get all the way into that. our committee told our office, our animal control officer, that she has the discretion on handling future incidents at her discretion. The radio network, I'll leave that for later, Andy. Child support, a written report was provided. Total support due for the month of July was $1,209,882.77, with the amount collected of $870,842.61. Emergency services, public written report was shared by and reviewed by Mr. Fremmel, identifying the increase in emergency runs. Narcan use is increasing. We've had one fentanyl death and one critically incident recently. Drug costs have increased 10% over the board, and some drugs are experiencing shortage. And there was discussion on the EMS station in Round Lake. Then there was a resolution adjusting the medical examiner's fees. The motion was made to approve this, and that at this time, that ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Buckles. Letter B, resolution to adjust medical exam fees. Mr. Alvarado.
Yes, the resolution in front of you is to adjust medical examiner fees. A little explanation there. We have a medical examiner. We switched that from a coroner. Regardless, the coroners and medical examiners issue death certificates, cremation releases. They do transport of bodies to various facilities, and we have a fee schedule set for that. In 2017, the legislature put a moratorium on fee increases, so you could not charge any more than you were charging in 2015. And then after April 18th, 2017, any increases may not exceed the annual percentage change in the U.S. Consumer Price Index, as it reads in the resolution. Surrey County has not updated or increased their fees during this time, or since the moratorium was lifted and allowed increases by the U.S. Consumer Price Index. So this resolution is to start increasing our fees and get us caught up a little bit. So it does an immediate fee increase effective October 1st, and then have another increase in January of next year. And then it has in here, we'll do these fee increases based on CPI for 5 years, so that we can keep that in place to get us caught up a little bit.
Mr. Schuman.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution adjusting the medical examiner fees.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Mr. Zavinsky seconds. Motion by Mr. Schuman, Mr. Schuman, second by Mr. Zavinsky to approve. Any discussion? Yes.
Is Mr. Frommo working with the funeral homes so that they're aware that the fees will increase, so it's not just dropped on them?
I do not know that, but he's going to have to.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that he was being proactive so that they weren't mad that they went up without acknowledgement.
Okay. I do know we did request a copy of, we're trying to find the most current fees based on other counties, and he was able to get that from the funeral homes. So I know there's been some communication.
Good question. Anybody else have any?
Thank you, John.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 11, Land, Water, and Forestry Resource. Mr. Swolsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Land, Water, and Forest Resources Committee met on September 11th at 8:30. Minutes of the August 8th meeting were approved by Ms. Wilson and seconded by Mr. Newman. A written report was provided detailing the activity in the Register of Deeds Department. Once again, the transfer fees were down, but the marriages were up. Land records and county surveyor written reports were given. In the County Forestry Department report, Mr. Peterson summarized the active and inactive timber sales. The fall timber sale bids will go out in October. Also, good news, Bayfield County received their first carbon credit revenue payment. Mr. Peterson advised that he was approached by a landowner whose property is next to the Berkey Trail. He would like to trade his property for county-owned land. So a motion was made and approved to seek an appraisal on that account. Mr. Peterson is recommending allowing an extension on timber sales that could not be completed due to the unusual winter weather last year. So a motion was made and seconded to allow those extensions. In zoning conservation, the department is continuing to monitor water levels at the county-owned dams. In the LCO report, Mr. Bissonette reported that they need to reroute the trail coming off of County Highway K, and they are awaiting signs to direct the riders. Mr. Alvarado explained that there is a piece of land in the village of Winter, the Ackley Amico land, that is contaminated, and it is county-owned. The DNR wants this site cleaned up, and motion was made by Mr. Newman, seconded by Mr. Carrigan to remediate this site. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none, let's move forward. Number 12, Health and Human Services. Mr. Schuman.
Oh, I'm taking it tonight. We met on September 10th, I believe. Public hearing regarding the tourist room house ordinance was held and the board reviewed the ordinance. The Health and Human Services Board moved it to the county board for tonight's discussion. An additional public hearing was held regarding the Health and Human Services budget. This was done in accordance with Wisconsin Statute 46.031. The Health and Human Services Board approved the budget and moved it forward to the county board. Under Child Protective Services, 5 children have found permanency. This means that rather than living in foster or kinship care, they now legally have permanent families. Under Youth Justice, the department is writing grants to develop an early intervention program that will allow them to work with youth when they start showing at-risk behaviors rather than waiting for things to escalate to delinquency. The initial focus will be on truancy. Under economic support, there have been issues with Medicaid purchases plans, otherwise known as MAPP. People are now having to pay premiums, and this must be done directly through the state. The state sent the information out late, and it was very confusing. The counties are trying to assist consumers, but they are not able to make payments at the county level. Shauna White is the economic support supervisor. If county board supervisors receive complaints, please regarding MAP, direct them to Shauna through the Health and Human Services reception desk. Under public health, there was a full-scale sheltering exercise on September 11th at Hayward Wesleyan Church. The Walk for Tomorrow is a walk for mental health and suicide prevention. There will be 2 walks in Sawyer County. One on September 20th, it will be at the Hayward High School track at 4 p.m. And the second will be on September 21st, and that will be at the Winter School at 5 p.m. Clean Sweep will be on September 25th from 2 to 6 at the Sawyer County Fairgrounds. In addition to household hazardous materials, medication, and medical sharps will be accepted. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for him? Letter B, tourist rooming house ordinance. Mr. Alvarado, you want to start us out, please?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to pull up, or oh, never mind, Julia's going to put it up there. Perfect. Just a little bit of an overview on tourist rooming house discussion, or not so much the discussion, the process and where we're at today. So last summer of 2023, the Zoning and Human Services Board sent a request up to the county board to set up an ad hoc committee to look at the issue of tourist rooming house with the possible formation of an ordinance to address those. That ad hoc committee did their work over about 9 months with multiple meetings and public comment and looking at other counties' tourist rooming house ordinances to come up with a proposed ordinance that went to the Health and Human Services Board in June with a public hearing. After that meeting, the Human Services Board sent it back to the ad hoc committee. Subsequently, we had to reform the committee or fill in some vacant spots, which we did in July, and then that committee has met twice and sent a updated or revised ordinance to the Human Services Board and they held a public hearing and discussion at their September meeting. The outcome of that was to send it with a motion to the board here without a recommendation. So that's where we are today. So we put it on the agenda for discussion only tonight to give an opportunity for the board to learn more about the ordinance with the intent of bringing it back at next month's meeting for action. And so I'll just go through a few slides here. A lot of this I've either explained at committee or verbally given to you in an admin report a couple months ago. But just to understand where we're at with tourist rooming houses in Sawyer County. We use the database that Public Health, or as our agents of the state, maintains. They license tourist rooming houses by issuing state licenses. And we looked at where do the people who own these properties, where do they get their information sent, where are they located, where do they live? And from that, we've concluded, and these probably aren't precise, but based on the information we have, it's good as we can do that. 38% of them live in the county, 4% live in an adjacent county, 24% live in another county in Wisconsin, and 34% of them are from out of state. So it's kind of a third, roughly. And out of state, there's 23 different states that we found their locations. Excuse me. Just to see how the tourist rooming house industry has grown in the county. We went back and looked at the database, and these are just of the properties that we still have licensed today. So over the last 15 years, properties have probably been licensed and become unlicensed, but this is just based on the ones today. 62 of them, I should say today, this from this summer when we pulled the data, 62 of them were in existence prior to 2009. Then you can see 2010, 11, 12, through about 2017, there was less than 20, sometimes just 3 or 4, sometimes 2017, 18, and then it really started to grow from there. 2018 and 19, there were 50 licenses, 56, and then in 21, 22, 23, 81, 93, and 91. So whether you want to call that the COVID effect or, that's one of the general conclusions out there is that people made decisions to, get away from wherever they were at and have a property in more of a rural recreational area. But there was an explosion, not just here, but throughout the state in tourist rooming houses, particularly in recreation areas. And then in 2024, as of this summer, we had 55 to date. There's probably a few more than that. That just gives you an idea of the increase. Where are they located in the county? This shows that town of Hayward has 86, town of Lenwood 82, Bass Lake 72, Spider Lake 69, and on down. And then the number of tourist rooming houses in Wisconsin. Door County, by far and away, has the most, and they've had them there for quite a while. Over 1,200, pushing 1,300. Vilas County over 1,000, and then we're right around 600. And then Walworth and Brown are right around that same area with us. And then we only put the counties here that have over 100 or more. But you can see, Brown, Bayfield has 415, Oneida 413, Adams 335, Sauk 226, etc. So we just wanted to give you an idea of the data as to where they're located and the growth in numbers. And then as part of assisting the committee and putting together the ordinance, we did try to compare other counties that have an ordinance separate from a state license. In our region, only Ashland and Washburn do not have a local license or a county license that we could find. I believe Ashland has started to work on theirs. Bayfield County just adopted a process this a couple months ago. But certainly the ones with the 10 most tourist rooming houses like Door and Oneida, those counties have them. And it's some of them are doing a zoning process with a conditional use permit. Some are doing a tourist rooming house license or permit through zoning. I'd say similar in criteria to ours, they're just issuing them through zoning. And then some are doing a license through public health. And some are it's a license or a permit. Generally, they have some sort of occupancy requirement in them or occupancy limitation. We looked at whether it was, some are 2 people per bedroom, which is based on POUTS, which is the private septic system when that's designed for the size of the number of bedrooms in the residence, that's the sizing. Some are using a 2 people per bedroom plus 2. And then some have another measurement. Some require a notification of adjacent property owners, either by a sign that's visible to the neighborhood or requiring a letter to be sent when the property is licensed. Most require some sort of local contact or agent that's within a certain proximity to be able to respond to the property or take phone calls. And I would say most also have some sort of parking requirement. And some of theirs designated number of parking stalls, some it's just that all parking has to be maintained on the property. Some of it's, they have to meet all local parking regulations. So just as a, we did try to research other counties and how they were handling this issue. And then in there on the package, we also included a FAQ. I'm not going to go through those. You've had opportunity to read through those. If you have any questions, we can answer them. And then from there, I'll turn it over to Matt to take the rest of the way.
Good evening. So this slide here, we just want to kind of talk about 2 different types of licenses that we're looking at here. As you know, we are agents of the state, so that allows us to do inspections and licensing for rental properties, tourist rooming houses, hotels, motels, restaurants, those kind of things. As an agent of the state gives us tools that we need in order to do what we do in the field, right? And so we have state statutes, administrative codes that back the things that we go out and inspect, things that we see when things aren't in compliance. We have these in place to ensure that we see resolve to these scenarios. So like ingress and egress of windows and doors, smoke alarms, making sure the facility has safe drinking water, safe decks and rails, making sure that the place isn't ridden with rodents or insects for that matter, making sure they have safe practices, whether it's for cleaning, sanitizing of things, and just identify any other additional hazards that might be out there. Likewise, with the proposed ordinance here for Sawyer County, we're looking for something like the state provides. We need some sort of structure, some sort of backbone, so that we can also address some of the other issues that we've been seeing over the years as we've been doing this. Right now, addressing those issues have been kind of difficult because we don't have anything in place to hold anybody accountable, and so sometimes it's hard to see resolve when these issues take place. So the ordinances help us ensure that the facility has a local owner or a local agent representing them, that the owner's agents is notifying the neighbors of tourist rooming houses and how to contact them. We're providing signage so that information is readily and easily available, as well as sending that information to the neighbors nearby. We're looking at trying to address occupancy so that a home that was built with 3 bedrooms is not housing 18 people. Just because you can facilitate a bunch of bunk beds in the lower level doesn't mean that it's necessarily meant for that purpose. Parking standards and garbage and additional overflow in camping units. So those are the things, some of the issues that we've been seeing, but it's hard to enforce some of these things because we don't have a structure there in place. Next, I just want to kind of give an overview of the ordinances. And as you know, our role with HHS is to provide services to protect the health, safety, and welfare of our community. We provide knowledge, resources, support, and tools to ensure that this happens, right? So our main focus in drafting these ordinances was to create a toolbox for addressing ongoing and recurring scenarios or complaints that affect people's overall health and safety. Our current process lacks the ability to tie issues that take place at the rental facilities and ties it to their license. The ordinances are a mechanism for holding owners, agents, and guests accountable for their actions or maybe the lack of their actions, you know, looking that if something's happening, we want those people to respond, right? The ordinances also provide a more more direct route to a resolution of the complaint. The ordinances will help provide a fair process to implement consequences when resolve is not observed. The ordinances also provides a process to challenge any denial, suspension, or revocation of a license. Just because we get a phone call doesn't mean that we're automatically pulling a license. Even if we get 3 phone calls, doesn't mean it automatically means that that license is being pulled. So there's a process, right? We started with these ordinances over a year ago to where we are now. We have significantly simplified the document to what we feel is clear and more concise, but yet effective language to address many of the recurring issues that we're seeing out there. So again, the main concepts: occupancy, owner and owner agent requirements, and their responsibilities for when they're applying and after they get a license as well. The owner and owner agents to notify and inform the neighbors of that rental activity. Enforcement, and some of the other areas that we've included in this is to address parking, the use of campers, pets, garbage, and a few others as well. By having an ordinance to tie accountability to a license, we hope to see less of the mentality of, what are you gonna do about it? Or, I can do whatever I want, I'm on vacation. And so often, I actually got a complaint secondhand. It wasn't a complaint direct to me, but I heard about this just yesterday that took place earlier this week in the town of Round Lake, that a neighbor or whoever it was confronted an individual who was doing whatever they wanted, and that was the exact answer. That was the mentality that they got in response of, you know, trying to inform them on what they shouldn't be doing. Yeah, that was the response that they got. So, and I've heard that many times over and over again, that people try to address the situation, and the response is that I can do whatever I darn well please. So that's not the mentality we want and need here. Our goal is not to go around and pulling license left and right. That's truly the last thing we want to do. We'd rather work through these issues to see that these things are not going on and that we can get resolved as quickly as possible. Should these ordinances be passed, major efforts on our part will be to inform and educate all licensed facility owners and the changes that have taken place. This will include sending out letters, emails, creating FAQs, updating our guide for those that are looking to become rentals. In that packet includes things you need to do in order to get a license, as well as recommendations that we would like to see encouraged at those facilities as well as hosting an in-person and online question and answer sessions for anybody that wants more information about what these changes are. In conclusion, the ordinances are a means to being proactive rather than reactive. Let's not wait to address issues after they happen, but how about we prevent the issues from occurring to begin with? Ordinances or laws keep honest people honest, and those that are not so much, at least we can try and keep them accountable. Ordinances are essential to ensure that tourist rooming houses and TRH's operations contribute positively to the county's economy without compromising the welfare and residential nature of our communities. These ordinances are necessary to reflect the evolving needs of Sawyer County, balance the interests of all stakeholders, and promote sustainable tourism. Finally, I believe this board respects the rights of private property owners to use and enjoy their property. The desire to ensure that lodging units rented for tourist rooming houses or short-term rentals are operated in a manner that protects the health, safety, and quality of life for the residents and visitors of Sawyer County. Without these tools, I struggle to know what our role is and how do we respond. With that, I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Questions?
Can you tell me why we're not voting on the much-discussed ordinance? Why are we not voting on that tonight?
We wanted to bring it for the full board, to bring all the board abreast of what's going on. Anything you want to add?
No, that's summarized. We had a chance for it to be explained. Questions, and I guess, a period for the board to, because some board members are very knowledgeable about it, some probably this is the first time they've seen it.
So do we have to go back to the ad hoc committee, or will it be presented again at the next month's meeting?
Next month's meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I do, Chairman, yeah. Yeah, Matt, can you come back here a minute? What is the big problem with occupancy or signage? I'm sorry, I missed the last HHS meeting.
Tweet,
But-
could I defer that for a moment? We'd like to have Julie.
Oh, sure.
give, a little synopsis of the next slide or two.
Good evening. My name is Julie McCullum, and I'm Health Officer of Sawyer County. I just wanted to address a couple of things operationally, just to inform. I wanted to let you know that our current process is to work with owners. If there are issues, complaints, things identified on pre-inspection or an ongoing inspection, we work with owners, right? We provide education, we provide the rationale for health and safety, and we work towards resolution. That's a big part of our role as agent of the state. That will not change. That's our process. We work with owners. What Matt mentioned about the current code and the current agent of the state, we do have certain things that are included in that, and we do use those for resolution. If there are issues that are unresolved, we can use that state license as agent of the state. They need to make those, they need to abide by those codes. This local ordinance addresses a lot of issues that we see with complaints that come in, other issues regarding tourist rooming houses, and gives us another tool to make sure that we're working towards resolution. It also helps with streamlining communication and hopefully resolving the issue more quickly. And I think the next slide. I did want to mention that the appeal process, which we have in place currently in our Muni Code, is what we will use for this proposed ordinance. If there is if a license is denied, suspended, or revoked, there is a process by which the licensee can go through the appeals process. It goes back to the health officer. If there isn't resolution, then the HHS board, it can go before the board for an appeal. And that is in the language as well. So, any questions?
Thank you.
Didn't sound like they answered the question that Tweet had as far as what kind of complaints or issues are there?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously like noise, trespassing, garbage. Again, we have situations where overflow is happening in, so people are inviting people with campers to their properties. And so with that, yeah, we do oversee licensing for campgrounds, but there's kind of this area, I wouldn't say it's a gray area, it's just the way it is that one is allowed to have a camper at those facilities as long as they're not advertising it. And so if they want one or two campers to come in, as long as they're not on that platform that they're advertising for the rental property, they can say, well, through conversation, invite somebody to bring their camper, and you got additional people staying there. So there's kind of this loophole of what is a campground, what's not. But again, some of the other issues, fireworks, parking, did I say garbage? I don't remember. But so yeah, there's a whole host. Campfires is a problem too, with whether they're being unattended, smoke rolling into the neighbors' windows. So it's a lot of these things are, sometimes it might be one night it's a parking issue, the next night it's a noise issue, the next night it's this, and it's these cumulative ongoing situations that creates a lot of stress for people around them. So our role is to try, in Health and Human Services, to try to make sure that we protect those citizens from some of these things that are happening out there.
But just to clarify, Matt, civil issues are still civil issues. Fireworks, drunken parties, things like that go to the sheriff's department. You're just, with your ordinance, you're just providing signage for contact information, things like that. We're not trying to go above and beyond.
Right, yeah, some of those things we wouldn't necessarily, we in our department wouldn't be able to address some of those things, like if there's a trespassing, we're not to be the first one that goes called out there, but this gives us a tool to kind of monitor those activities that are happening, and if they're ongoing, this gives us some tools to work with to tie activities to a license.
So like the Cliff's Notes version of his question is, so it's just more informative. There's more informative information provided than there has been in the past, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Hoey.
So would this help you deal with someone that is having, issues over and over and over?
Yes, it would. That's why, because right now, when we get a call, we have a database, like Andy was saying, for our licensing, right? And in there, we can note violations and we can note complaints. But those can only be tied to complaints that deal with licensing. And so whether it's an unsafe deck or just, again, tied to licensing, if the place is not clean and we're getting that same complaint over and over from that same facility, right? But when we get these other complaints outside of what deals with licensing, we don't have a solid mechanism to track that, keep tallies of it, to have a solid database to know what these are on an ongoing basis, and then to take that information, if there's a history going on with a facility, we can then see, maybe tie that to their license if we're not getting any resolve, or these are ongoing situations that are creating a lot of problems.
Mr. Bennett.
Just for clarification, in this new ordinance, it lists fireworks, and it says no fireworks are going to be allowed on any of these rentals. Isn't that correct?
Correct.
Any other questions, Mr.
Not so much a question, but I just want to try to piece together a couple of questions with Matt's response to put a scenario so we're all on the same page. Like civil or criminal actions, like the sheriff might respond this week. Let's just say it's the same property. Fireworks going off at midnight. They respond, it's a noise issue. They address it. Next week, the neighbor calls because the TRH people are property on their property. We log those. And then maybe a couple weeks later, I don't know, another noise issue. And so right now we address those separately. Now with the ordinance, we can collect those. Matt meets with the property owner and says, we had some problems here. Neighbors are unhappy. We're responding with law enforcement. Maybe nothing happens, and they as a local agent or the property owner who's ever running it, starts to enforce that with their renters, and we don't have any problems. Problems continue. We're spending county resources on that property. We have a way now to suspend the license or not issue the license next year, whereas, right now we really don't have anything that we can do to tie it to the license itself to eliminate those problems. I think it's trying to balance out too these are residential properties in residential neighborhoods, trying to, continue to let them operate because we know they're important to the community, but respect that they're within our neighborhoods as well. The fireworks one, I did a little investigating on that because you had asked about that, the last one. And based on, it's fairly common. I can give you numbers if you want for ordinances like this to include the fireworks restriction. And best I can tell, the reason is that if I live there, I'm your neighbor, I'm probably only going to light off fireworks a couple times in the summer. But with tourist rooming houses, because it's a potentially new group there every week, and they're on vacation, they might want to light fireworks off every week, which doesn't always sit well with the neighborhood. So that's why they do include that provision in a lot of these ordinances. That's, I think, the origin of it.
Also, can you reiterate that our legal team looked at this and there's no potential there for legal action later?
I will not do that. I will say the first part is definitely correct and our legal team is online. But we were, just, I know what you're talking about though. We were very cognizant of the fact that many of these ordinances in other counties have been challenged in court. So we were trying to navigate that, so we are not challenged in court. But I'm not gonna guarantee we won't be challenged in court.
If the property is sold, does the license go with the new buyer or does he have to apply?
No, it has to reapply.
Okay.
Also. Go ahead, state your name. Is it Jen?
My name is Ginny Chabek. I served as the chairman of the ad hoc committee. My position and my views are a little bit different, a little bit unique as from my position as being part of the committee. And I just wanted to take a few minutes to explain that to you as well. So thank you for your time. The Sawyer County Board established the TRH Ad Hoc Committee in June of 2023 in order to have a community-based group of interested parties make recommendations on how to best regulate short-term rentals. And I know that that's a statement that's been said before, it's pretty basic, but I think it's important to repeat it. Over the year and more than a year that the committee was in practice, we reviewed other ordinances, listened to public comment, involved legal counsel, worked closely with county zoning and health departments, altered the structure of to be more aligned with rental property owners, and passed a motion approving the document that you have before you by 8-2. This is a challenging issue for Sawyer County to address. The ordinance doesn't set limits on minimum or maximum days a property can be rented. It doesn't require a property owner to establish residency at a rental location. I understand that other local governments are implementing rules like that. However, Sawyer County has many special events throughout the year that draw visitors. Some of those items would be a non-starter for Sawyer County because of our events. The most important element of the ordinance, in my opinion, is the occupancy limit based on septic system sizing. Some will say that the occupancy limit unfairly reduces profits. I look at it as long-term sustainability versus short-term economic gain. Early in the process, the ad hoc committee set the direction to follow state statutes for septic system capacity. Ultimately, a compromise was reached that combines septic system capacity with lodging industry standards, and that's how we got to the 2 per bedroom plus 2 per dwelling. If the goal of Sawyer County is to be a destination location for large group gatherings week after week for months of the year, then we should be considering creating a tourism zone district and building a wastewater treatment system to support it. Our lakes are our tourism offering, and our wells are our critical infrastructure. Let's protect the water. The other element addresses the ordinance by giving residents easy access to contact information for responsible parties and giving our HHS department the tools and authority to prevent repeat problems from occurring in our neighborhoods. I have kept all of the meeting minutes, my notes, and the public comment forms. I'm happy to do research and help any board member if there's something that you would like to know or something that maybe would take longer to discuss. Please feel free to reach out to me. The clerk has my contact information. Finally, please understand that the creation of VRBO, Airbnb, etc., have resulted in globally challenging situations in nice places, just like Sawyer County. Look at what's happening in other nice places, and I hope that you will agree that it's right that Sawyer County should live within our means regarding our limited infrastructure. The status quo, or taking no action, will lead to more problems within our neighborhoods and our ecosystem. The towns and municipalities will be forced to implement their own ordinances, which may not take into consideration all of the concerns that the ad hoc committee did consider. Thank you for your time and attention on this matter.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. Jenny, can you stay there, please? Ginny, did we address all the edits that the other people had when we brought it back to the ad hoc committee?
Yes, we did.
There were property managers there, tourist rooming house owners. They had concerns and wanted things addressed. Did we add all those to this new version?
Yes, we did.
I thought we did.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions regarding this? Put it on the agenda tonight to bring everybody abreast to where we're at with it. We plan on having it on the agenda next month. Okay? Yes.
One last question for Andy. Andy, is this budget neutral, budget positive?
At this point, it's not anything. The intent is to, if the ordinance gets adopted, we'll come back with it's gonna need administration and enforcement. And so if it's adopted and we can issue licenses, we're gonna come back with a budget neutral proposal for permit fees and the necessary staffing for it.
Good question. Thank you.
Andy, is there any cost for these permits?
There will be, I'm not gonna pin down a number, but
Right.
I'd say 300 to 500 is what I've seen from other counties. And I should say that's like the initial fee, the first fee, and then the renewals are a little less.
Thank you. Number 13, Finance Committee report, Mr. Righeimer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on September 12th. Treasurer's report, a written report was provided. Finance Department report. On sales tax distribution, a written report was provided by Mr. Markran, advised that the state put our projections for the remainder of this year and 2025, which was 2.9 million plus. Our estimates seem to be on target with state projections. For the budget, a budget update, revenues and expenses look good. We are late on receiving HHS grant funds and the highway department looks good. For capital improvement plan update, we bought one more squad and did courthouse door controls totaling $85,282.17 in CIP purchases. An attorney's fees breakout was provided in a written report and showed that to date we have spent $137,521.92 on attorney's fees for the past 6 months. For the county budget, Mr. Markram provided a review of the 25 proposed budget. There are 6 possible levy limit exemptions available to us, and we currently use 4 of them. New staff requests are coming in from the Sheriff's Department, Zoning, and Highway. A fund balance draw in the amount of $2,849,149 is projected, with an adjusted draw amount of $681,015. Total preliminary revenue of $41,988,943 is projected, with little over 42 million in expenditures. The resulting tax levy would be 2.46. An investment update was provided showing a total year-to-date interest rate of $740,993. For the EMS ambulance report, Mr. Markram provided us with the last 3 months of the aging report and have shown improvement, with almost half being current. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions? We'll go to letter B. We have our own accountant, Mr. Markram, here. Just the people who got questions?
Yeah, so the presentation's in your packet. It's essentially the same presentation that you saw 2 weeks ago. If Mike wants to, I think there's a couple updates, but.
2 changes. I had mentioned our net new construction was 1.32%, ended up being 1.322%. So that equated to $209 additional tax levy. And then the other change is we had a personal property state aid increase of $50,876. That will come off the levy now, so that made our mill rate drop from 2.47 to 2.46, which Mr. Righeimer mentioned. So those are really the only 2 changes from what you saw 2 weeks ago.
So we have it on for, if you have any questions tonight, from here.
I do, I guess.
Okay.
Mike? What's in the budget for transit? We just had a transit. Oh, thanks. We just had a transit board meeting today and we approved the budget and the ask of the county to increase the amount to them. I don't know if you got that yet, but what is in there
I
now?
did see that this afternoon, yep, that came in late today. The budget still includes the 165, which was the initial ask. The 15,000 in CIP we did not include.
So how do we get it
So
on
it's
there?
flat from last year.
Motion now or when they present the budget?
It'll be presented next month.
Yep.
That'll be.
So we turn it from here.
How did the other numbers get in there though?
The process at this, for the budget is Mike and I, mostly Mike for the large extent, we assemble the budget, and then we give you updates as to where we're at, and then we turn it over to you next month. And then you can.
Well, the committee now is met and came up with a number that they're requesting.
Yep.
The board approved it.
We don't agree.
That board approved it. You don't
Yep.
agree.
Right.
But it still goes to Mike and.
Yep. And I mean.
So we have to make that motion when you approve the budget.
At this point, I don't think we're gonna put it in there. We have our reasons. Same thing with like senior resource asked for more than we put in the budget as well. The board's free
Is the
to,
board okay with that?
the board's free to amend the budget. I mean, that's,
Ms. Hessel.
But can you remind the board of the timeline that all the agencies are supposed to get their request in?
they did. Transit had their request in on time. There was some questions about the split of operating versus capital, which they've addressed. But I mean, I think I mentioned at the last month, or maybe at the finance meeting, that we see transit has a fund balance on hand, a significant fund balance that we'd like to see them use. And there might be good reasons why they're not using it, and they can explain that to the board or the
Well, we're
members
here-
of
we're
our
here
board.
tonight
that-
to explain it.
Hold on.
We have the director here, or the manager.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think our manager will explain some of these things, and there's reasons that, I mean, it's kind of like the county, that we have money invested in things. We're not using that money, are we? And so it's the same thing for the, they're being, for the transit. They've invested some monies in something so that they can take care of things in the future that they have, as in buses and capital money. It should be in the budget. It's right in our articles, thank you. Can we have our manager step up to the mic and explain why she's requesting the additional 15,000?
So
Or should that be next month?
tonight, we're reviewing, if there's any questions, updates. And next month, the administration will present the budget to the county board, and it'll be the county board's budget at that time. And then in November, we have to decide what we're going to approve. If you would like the manager to explain her side, absolutely.
Like, do you want to wait till next month?
Because next month, we are gonna make a decision. So if she's gonna explain, today would be the day to explain.
Today's
Yep.
the day, okay.
Carrie, can you come up and,
Yeah.
please?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So mainly the reason we asked for the increase is due to the increase in cost of everything, right from the start of paying wages to retain our current employees to hiring. We've had to give cost of living increases to our drivers and our staff, which was well deserved because we want to retain them, and to also increase the starting wage for anybody new coming in, so that we can hire. To address we do have a money market that has a significant amount in it. But I had emailed Andy and Mike. We do have plans for this money. We have $311,000 that was an overpayment in 2020 that we have to have that money readily available when WisDOT completes our in-house audit. We have to write them a check for that money. So that money is already allocated for that. But it's sitting in our money market because we collect interest on it. So that's the best place for it right now. We have 7 new buses on order that we will be receiving early 2025. When those buses come in, we have to write a check for the balance of those buses, which is $823,000 and $823,000 we have to write that check for. We get reimbursed by WisDOT for 80% of that, and we have to pay 20% of that. But we have to write that check and wait then for them to reimburse us. So the purchases that we already have planned equal about $600,000 with that overpayment check that we have to write out also. And then we like to keep money in our money market, collecting interest for additional capital purchases that we have planned in the future. We are in the works of planning a pull building to store our buses. Right now, we store them outside, and that is, the cold weather is very hard on them, and they are subject to vandalism, which we have experienced already.
Mr. Schuman, does something down?
No, Carrie, can you explain the articles of organization that you shared with us today at our board meeting and concepts within there that talk about
The
funding for capital
Sure.
improvement projects?
So our articles of organization state that our members, so both LCO and Sawyer County, will contribute to capital purchases. So that is why we did originally include capital in our budget, in our request.
Cecil?
So then did you ask LCO for the same amount?
We have asked LCO for 170,000 for and we've asked Sawyer County for 180,000. The reason for that is LCO fully funds all of our weekend service. So our operating budget that we've asked for Sawyer County and LCO to fund, LCO additionally funds all of our weekend service, which is also available for Sawyer County residents. You don't have to be an LCO member to utilize those services.
Okay, and then can you tell me, I'm sure that the board members that go to your committee meetings know this, but how many people in Sawyer County do you serve, and then what is your rate?
So we serve, like our ridership, do you want our ridership
Sure.
numbers? Okay, so just for August of 2024, so last month, we completed 4,599 rides. The August of last year, so 2023, we completed 4,396. So I like to compare month to month, you know. So we've increased rides this year for the same month, 203 rides. So we count by rides, not by clients served. And our fares, so our weekend service, we charge $2 a flat fee, whether they're full price or reduced fare. It's $2 per trip, so each way. During the week, it is $2 for reduced fare and then $3 for full fare.
And what is the maximum mileage that they can get for $2? Because you can't even get a gallon of gas for $2. So I'm just trying to figure out.
We don't charge by the mile, it's per trip.
Okay, so what is the radius that you serve then? Can you remind me, all of Sawyer County?
All of Sawyer.
Okay, so if I wanted to go from Hayward to Winter, it would only cost me $2?
It would cost you $3.
Oh, it cost me $3, okay, got it. Got it.
Unless you applied for reduced fare and you were eligible for reduced fare.
Now, that just amazes me, so.
It is great, and a lot of people rely on that, that service.
So, and I hope that you don't mind, but when people have been calling me, you know, having questions or concerns, like if the buses aren't full and they see that they're not full, and it's people that have complained in the past, I've just asked them to call you, is that okay?
And yes.
Okay.
And they have.
All right,
We've
great.
met.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mr. Elliott?
I just wanted to make the point also that LCO, for the last few years, how many years have they been contributing 165? And we've only been contributing 150. That's why we only asked an additional 5 from LCO, or one of the reasons, and we did 15 for Sawyer
Sawyer.
County.
Correct.
How long have they been doing that? I
And
forgot.
also, I think it's been 7 years.
7 or 8 years, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think, to me, the weekend service plays a lot into it.
Right.
LCO pays a lot additionally for that weekend service, you know, $130,000 a year for weekend service that Sawyer County residents do utilize also. And they provide the buses for that weekend service. We use LCO provided buses.
And last question, I'm sorry, but, and then do you do is there a time cap? Like, can you only ride until a certain time in the day, or are people using it as a sober bus as well?
So we run until 9 PM, so it depends on what time they want a sober ride.
Mr. Rickheimer.
Those fares seem extremely inexpensive, which I can see why people appreciate that. Times are tough for everybody. In the private sector, a company would have to raise its rates. I mean, have you considered raising those rates? I mean, impact study, 50 cents, even $1 more, what that would do, which would still seem to be a fair rate.
We actually did. So in 2023, there was a fare increase, and it dramatically hurt our ridership. People could not. So, you know, $3 seems very inexpensive, and it is. But if you are taking transportation, the transit to and from work every single day, that's $6 a day. That, you know, it adds up. And if they can't afford to buy a vehicle, or are doing this until they can afford to buy a vehicle, or saving money, we want to keep our rates affordable. And we are, you know, we're subsidized by WSDOT for this also. So another reason to ask for this increase is our grant that we get from WSDOT is based on our local match. So what we receive on the local level from both the tribe and the county determines what we get from the WSDOT.
Thank you.
Our operations.
Yes.
Carrie, too, the local match that you get also has an influence on your grants, right?
Correct, yes.
Can you kind of explain that? I mean, like you kind of did at our board meeting today.
Right, so there, and it is based on a percentage, which WSDOT does not have the exact percentage available yet. But I have reached out to the WSDOT officials that we work with, and they do feel that there might be a decrease to that percentage. So the past, it was, let's just say, and I don't have that exact percentage, 4.3%. So whatever we get for local match from our communities, that determines the amount based on this formula of the 4.3% or whatever of what we get for our total operations. So if we can increase what we get on the local level, that's going to increase our operations budget. So even if locally the $5,000 from LCO and the $15,000 from Sawyer County, it's only $20,000. Our budget has increased more than that because of the cost of everything. But we are getting that extra funding from WSDOT based on what we're getting from the county and the tribe.
Okay. Thank you. I'm also going to add that when Health and Human Services set up Sawyer County Transit back a few moons ago, that it was on Sawyer County land, and I think that's when they initially stayed with $150,000 for years. Not saying that things can't change, but that's where it originally came from. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Moving forward. Economic Development, Mr. Righeimer.
Thank you. We met on September 9th. We didn't have a report from the Sawyer County Fair, but by all appearances, it was a big success. Hayward Community School Education Director Meredith Ingbertson advised the committee on how community members will be able to access the new facilities at the remodeled school building. Monthly and family individual membership rates are available. I don't have a note of what they were, but I remember them being extremely reasonable for.
It's on the school website.
Okay. Do you remember, what are they? You know?
It's on the school website.
Okay. It wasn't something that would prohibit you from a cost standpoint, I'll say that. A written report for the Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau was provided, highlighting the August 24 marketing efforts. Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez visited the Hayward area on Thursday, August 8th, taking part in the ATV-UTV ride and a visit to Tamarack Farms. Ms. Simmons reported a very busy August at the HLVCB with events and marketing campaign. The Economic Development Corporation, Mr. Lamaro, provided a verbal update. In the last month, they worked with 10 hopeful new businesses. This incubator is ready for use. There are grant opportunities coming up along with training on how to offer the loan programs. They are hosting an alternative funding workshop soon. For the library, written reports were provided. For the motorized and non-motorized trail report, Ms. LaRue advised that route markers have been going up to help clarify newly opened routes. The trail counters have been providing results. Trail 5 has seen a jump in activity since county roads were opened. Sealy Hills trails hold steady with about 1,600 riders a month. The Tuscobia Trail is over 3,000 a month. LCO showed a substantial drop-off in ridership, down to 500 a month. The DNR recently put up some safety messaging that they want shared. Mr. Duffy shared an email from Ben Pop on the non-motorized trail activity. Trail counters at 00 shows over 5,500 visitors in August. They have over 8,800 Berkey registrations to date, and Berkey Week events are now open for registration. The Forestry Department recently completed a logging project at 00 with little interruption of trail services. Mr. Alvarado provided a broadband update, reported that the BEAD process and the endorsement process, applications for letters of support should be coming in soon. Mr. Karianen advised that the CEP has been downsizing their staff operations and the Spooner office will likely close. There was no update from the Historical Society, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Hearing none. Number 15, outside committee update reports. Anybody that's on these outside committees care to share anything with the county board? Ms. Hessel.
Just to reiterate, we have our walk for tomorrow, and it is at the Hayward High School and then Saturday at the winter school. I also want to just thank the administration for putting up these signs. I know it seems silly, but as elected officials and with the things happening in the world and being sworn at a time or two, it's just nice to keep that little bit of distance. So I just want to thank you for your effort and attention to our safety.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Schuman.
I guess we already mentioned, but Sawyer County Lac-Courte Transit met today and approved the budget, and we made that request.
Okay.
Other than that, can you think of anything else, Carrie, we want to add to? No, the big thing is our ridership is up, the highest of previous years and everything, so.
Good. That's what the service is for. Yep. Anybody else?
Does, can the transit report the finance from time to time too? Or is that something that's?
Absolutely, they can.
Okay.
Okay. Number 16, county administrator's report. Enlighten us.
Do you want me to go through my report first or through the bug tussle items first?
Your choice.
I'll do my report first because there is a closed session for the bug tussle items. So in case anybody doesn't want to hang around for that. I was a little slow getting this to Lynn, so it's just either going to be uploaded or has just been uploaded. Alex will put it up on the screen. So personnel-wise, our recruiting has diminished a little bit. We've gotten to the point where we're recruiting for deputies and ambulance. That's really all we're doing right now. We have a court security and a patrol position. We're doing some interviews today over there, so maybe we'll get those filled. Still quite a bit of need in our ambulance area. Primary need is paramedics, although we do have a handful of people in paramedic school right now that are part of our service already. So after the first of the year, we're hopeful that we'll be filling some of those spots, and then we'll have advanced EMT positions open up. Corporation Council, nothing really new there, kind of the same list of projects. We are, Tourist Rooming House has been a consistent need for Corp Council. And these are kind of the unique items. We still have Corp Council services and human services on a routine basis. And we have Board of Adjustment attorney and attorneys in child support. So I know finance has been looking at our legal cost. We do use a number of attorneys to provide those differing services. Airport, just to reiterate, Mr. Hellwig said that we are at the point where the master plan for the airport is proceeded to the point where they're gonna have another public session. So on October 9th, which is the same evening as Public Works at 4 o'clock, the advisory group will meet with the consultants. They'll give them an update on their plans. And then there'll be a public information session as part of Public Works at 6:30. The consultant will be showing at both those meetings their preferred alternatives for the future development at the airport. And so there'll be a chance for the committee and the public to see those. They need the county board to essentially sign off on the preferred alternative for the future of the airport. The plan is to look at it in October and then have it on the committee agenda in November and then to the board in November for hopeful approval. Everything to wrap up the master plan is dependent upon whatever the design alternative is to plan for in the future. And then prior to the meeting, October 9th, the master plan website, which is listed there, will be updated with that information. And we are also working with Hayward Aviation on renewing their airport management contract for a second 5-year term. Ambulance, just essentially ongoing issues with as far as staffing and trying to find the most efficient way to operate. We are, have mentioned to the Public Safety Committee that I think the next step for me is to meet with the people from town of Round Lake to follow up on their offer for property and to go through the alternatives, why it might or might not work and the costs associated with that. I think some of the points raised were good, just from the standpoint, even if we were to have a third permanent base, where would that base be located? Would it make sense to have it in Round Lake? We still have ongoing, I had a meeting last week with residents from the town of Edgewater who are still concerned about that situation with having an ambulance service they contract with, as well as being part of Sawyer County. So we have multiple issues that we'll continue to address in the ambulance area. Broadband, yes, the BEAD process is moving along. It's a big pot of money that will be distributed by the state. Providers have until October 1st to file letters of intent, and then the application process is going to move pretty quick after that. I believe the first round of applications are due in December 18th. And I've already heard from providers that are going to be applying for those dollars. They will be coming to the county to seek endorsement. There's an official endorsement process or points that they get in their application if the county endorses it. So we've given them an outline of what we need to see, and that we'll be taking those requests for consideration at the October and November Economic Development and Extension Committee. And then that committee will forward them on to the board for approval. LCO, just still trying to generate some discussion on the CJCC agreement. There's some indication that they're going to be responding with some updates to the language so we can put that back in place. I think you heard the updates on CJCC from Public Safety. And if you've been reading the Sawyer County Record, they've done a nice series of articles on some of the things that have happened as a result of a lot of years of effort and seeing our jail population stabilize or reduce and stabilize, and probably a lot of things that could be credited with that, including the second courtroom, the diversion deflection programs going on, the work at Justice Point. Now we have Recovery Court up and running. So I think those things are all moving along as we want, and probably what was planned years ago by starting a justice program. And now the youth issues are starting to bubble to the top, so that's where some of the attention is going to go. And looking at youth justice, we have when the Human Services Board went through the budget, there is some increase in their budget for next year because of youth justice placements. Placing youth outside the county in different facilities has really busted that budget this year, so we're planning for that next year. And then also focusing in on truancy as maybe one of the root problems within the county. Budget, public hearing next month. I guess just as a suggestion too, if there are any, just as a suggestion, if board members have, like we've heard some questions or concerns on what's in the budget, maybe suggest that those be discussed at the Finance Committee in October so we can, put numbers to it for the committee and the board as to the impact, and then the board can make their decisions on what you want to do. But it'd be helpful, I think, to have them referred to the October Finance meeting. I think facilities, we're moving along with projects there. We're going to talk about the Public Safety Radio Network here in a few minutes. There's some significant changes as a result of changes in state statute regarding the tax deed process that we're working through with the treasurer, and will result in a new process there. Carbon credits was mentioned. We were encouraged to hear that Bayfield County did receive revenue into their county coffers as a result of sale of credits. Ours are moving along. They're still doing the certification of our credits, but in the meantime, they are starting to market them. We did review some marketing material that they put together for the sale of the credits. We are still, I think, at least a year away before we would even see a sale, but things are slowly moving along with all the counties that are involved in that effort. Heads up on what you might see in October, November, but we do anticipate that we're going to see a petition filed with the county for the formation of a lake district. I don't know the last time one of those was done here, but there's an effort in the Callahan Mud Lake area to form a lake district. So we've seen the county actually owns parcels within the geographic boundaries of the district. So we did get a copy of the petition. We talked about it land water. We took no action, but once we get that petition within 30 days, we have to have a committee meeting. So we have to have a committee hold a public hearing. So the land water committee will hold a public hearing. It has to be within 30 days. We do have to have time to notice it. And then the committee presents their findings to the county board. And ultimately, their county board has to make a resolution to establish the lake district. Covered the sites in winter. We did do a staff training here. I think it's just noteworthy. We're talking about AI, artificial intelligence. If you've been reading your Wisconsin Counties magazine, you'll see AI pop up quite a bit. It's being implemented. It's starting to be seen in applications that we use, different software. So we're just trying to get ourselves, our staff up to speed on how it can be used responsibly. And then there was one reference to this during public comment, but there is a meeting on September 30th that I'm holding with the town chairs. It's in response to a letter received from the Sawyer County unit of the Wisconsin Towns Association that came to me regarding some concerns with the zoning process and timelines. So I've sent a correspondence out to the town chairs, inviting them to a meeting to sit down and discuss that, so I can hear their issues, concerns, and see what we can do to resolve those. Also, I've let them know too, we're gonna talk about zoning as our primary item, but there'll also be time, I'm gonna hold time if they wanna bring up any other issues that we jointly are looking, have to work on, like broadband or roads or ambulance service. So I'm just, think it's a good opportunity for me to develop a rapport with the town board chairs or their representatives, whoever they want to send to that meeting. That's it for my report.
Questions?
Question, yeah. Do you have any plans to look at the ambulance in the Round Lake area?
I've looked at it. Yep, and I don't know, I don't have a proposal. I guess I'm not even gonna try to discuss it. I've shared some thoughts with the Public Safety Committee on what our findings are. There was a study done, and I don't know if I've not seen the one from 13, 14 years ago. I've seen the one from 2017, which resulted in committing the county to a full-time service and 2 bases, one in Hayward, and the other one was in the southern part, and he ultimately settled on the Ojibwa station.
Do we know how much money Bayfield County received on their carbon tax?
I believe the amount from this sale that they received was about $175,000. So there were sales prior to that, but those went to pay the upfront or administrative costs of putting the credits together. So now they should start to see, as sales happen, they should see more funds.
Yes, could you just clarify, the meeting you're having on September 30th, that is just with you and the chairs? There's no board action, it's not a public comment action, that's just with you and the chairs as a courtesy because the town has asked for us to communicate better.
Yep.
Correct? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to have that clarification.
Very good.
Bug tussle?
Bug tussle.
All right. Well, let's start by saying Mitchell is here again from Bug Tussle in the back of the room. Our legal counsel, Andy and Ben, are online to help us through this. So one thing I want to get on the table right away that I didn't even think we got to last month is that this is a resolution entering into extending our borrowing capacity. So in order to pass it, if you end up wanting to go ahead with this and want to make a motion, it will require a 3/4 vote of the board. which means that everybody that's here tonight has to vote in favor, because we have 3 absences, 3/4 vote would be 12 people. Just want to get that out of the way so everybody's aware of that. So at the last meeting, we talked about getting some additional financial information to do what we could on a credit analysis or financial analysis. We did get some additional information that I can share. In addition, there was some talk about, I think maybe, I'm not sure if we discussed it or if Mitchell brought it up, on potentially changing the size or changing the project to make it more attractive or palatable for the board. And I didn't ask Mitchell ahead of time. Did you have anything specific to propose that you want to put on the table? While he's coming up, we put a closed session on the agenda to be able to talk about that, because this is a negotiation. Council can explain that, but there are some things for us to talk about in closed session, so I want to have him get his information out in open session, and then we can go to closed session to discuss it.
Thank you again for having me, and good to see you all again. And I'm glad I didn't make you schedule another special meeting and that this one just fell on the calendar. The 2 lines that I'm showing here today in front of you right now are what we could theoretically change about the project and still produce a good result. The dark blue line is the total of what the $16 million, including that yellow, is what the $16 million project would get you. Is the towers in red and green are just shown for effect, but the 4 towers that we're building here and then putting equipment on the green tower, as well as the 115 miles of fiber here. In the event that the number is really what gives you heartburn, just as throwing something at the wall, I put together this. Just the blue line is removing the redundancy, which in network sense is not necessarily a positive, is you want to have redundancy in the event something happens to your fiber over here, so your traffic can travel in the other direction. But reducing the fiber mileage to about 70, this is about 30 miles worth of fiber, would drop the total project cost to about $10 million. So you would still have fiber connectivity to the tower sites that are on the fiber route identified here. You'd still have broadband service from the fixed wireless sites, as well as the homes that are passed by the fiber route in the light blue, but it would reduce your full obligation to a $10 million number instead of the 16 that had been originally proposed. So the risk profile ultimately is the same. The structure is the same. The size of the project is a little bit smaller, if that is the direction you choose to go.
But Mitch, you're saying then there would be no alternate route if one of those routes went bad. With 16 million, you get double coverage in those areas.
Correct. Is generally speaking, when we're designing networks that go within the context of county projects like this, and this is how we do a lot of our fiber growth, so we're really targeting trying to create a ring or two so that you do have that redundancy within the county. Now, as part of kind of the holistic big picture of what we're doing, really what we're trying to do is get redundancy from wherever that traffic originates to wherever it's ultimately being terminated on our network, Chicago or Minneapolis. So trying to create as many paths from point A to Cermak in Chicago is really what our ultimate goal is. But as far as your network internal within Sawyer County, there is value here. If you're connected to this tower site and there's a fiber cut over here, assuming you did the full project, that traffic can still navigate to where it needs to go going the other way.
Does the reduction, I think it's maybe the same question, but does the reduction alter anything with the law enforcement piece, or is that a separate component?
No, it doesn't impact the towers. It doesn't impact the number of towers that would have the connectivity. It just compromises, is probably too hard a word, but it impacts the reliability of the network in that you don't have a built-in fail-safe from the jump.
So where I keep getting confused in my head is, so that's, your map is broadband and cellular enhancement?
My map is a fiber route, which is in one of 2 shades of blue, and then diamonds that represent tower sites. So what those are used for is still technically up in the air as far as what you guys want to do with your radio network. The specific locations of the towers are probably a little fungible as well. But really, the lines carry traffic. And so whether that's my traffic or whether that's your traffic, that's
and
what
by traffic, you mean broadband and or cellular traffic, okay.
or your internal law enforcement traffic if you elect to use it for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Helwig.
So the, cutting out the redundancy, would that hurt the broadband people in any way?
In the same capacity, yes. Is granted, our fiber is buried. Cuts are rare. It's not as outage frequent as if you do aerial and have tree falls and things like that. But it would create an instance in the event that you're severed from the network, you're not going to be back online until that fiber is repaired. Now, that's not an absurdly long time, but by putting in the redundant route, you never have downtime unless you have multiple cuts, but it's unlikely.
Mr. Duffy.
I am not making any endorsements or non-endorsements right now.
Mr. Schultz.
No, I want the board to discuss this and get the information out without clouding it with any of my opinions.
Mitch, is this fiber already in the ground?
No.
The light blue?
This is all theoretical, all proposed, all what we would fund for with this project. There's a couple of reference layers I can throw on just to give you kind of a better sense of what the current state of things in Sawyer County is. So most notably, this is the BEAD funding eligibility data. The areas that are in red, the darkest red are areas that already have fiber connectivity. The areas that are in light red are areas that don't have connectivity yet, but have an existing funding commitment. So those are areas where grants have been awarded. Most of them in Sawyer County are PSC grants through one of the local providers, Novato. There is also some enhanced ACAM from, I forget if Indian had changed their name, or if that's
Bevcom.
Bevcom, there you go. So from Bevcom down here, so this is relatively new news that came out earlier this year that they have enhanced ACAM funding to build up through this. But the green is the two classes of eligible dots. The dark green are just eligible and the light green are priority eligible, whatever that means. So that's really the area where broadband coverage is the most lacking in Sawyer County, is this area between what Novato is doing in the, we'll just call it the greater Winter area, including Loretta and Draper, and then the stuff to the east of Hayward, with the caveat that there's some stuff within the immediate halo of Hayward that still needs connectivity.
Does the, and I've heard this so many times, and I guess I wish I had answers in my head. I keep having more questions the more I think about it. Does broadband and site, does it have to be together, or can they be separate, or are they one and the same? It doesn't matter.
They're entirely separate and distinct.
They're entirely separate.
So the broadband we would offer is a bug tussle product sold off of specific fixed wireless broadband equipment that is mounted on the tower. Simultaneously to that, we'll work with national carrier partners to put additional cellular equipment on the tower. So that's different equipment, different.
It's a different thing.
Same tower site.
But does your company have interest in just, let's say we said we just want cellular. Does that not interest you?
That's entirely fine. It's not, the broadband equipment is not a significant expense. So we're still building the tower, so.
So the cost doesn't change then?
It wouldn't change in any significant way.
Okay, and the reason I say that, because to me broadband, I guess maybe that answers my question. I mean, to me broadband's a nice to have, but I guess it sounds like that's not the cost. I mean, to me cellular is a safety issue. Broadband's not, but it sounds like the broadband is, you might as well take the broadband, I guess, if you were going forward because of the cellular. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the biggest point I make is this slide from my presentation I made the other day is really what I'm talking about building is infrastructure. Is we want to build towers and we want to build fiber, which are serving all of those purposes. We're multi-using the towers to do cellular with a carrier partner, fixed wireless on our own, as well as the county's equipment for your emergency communications. Same on the fiber. Fiber is the gold standard of how you are connecting these assets, connecting the tower sites, whether that's for a cellular broadband or emergency communications purpose. You want to put this infrastructure in because that's the best network out there.
They are kind of the same then. I mean, they are intertwined. Okay.
Yeah, I want to make sure, clarify. So, I mean, we're extending our borrowing capacity for them to build, that's a good way to put it, build infrastructure. We get the emergency communications to put our equipment on there and access to strands of fiber. Now, the towers are each gonna have fiber. They're going, I mean, we actually can't, I mean, we're taking them at their word that they're going to market their tower sites for national carriers, for cellular, and that they're gonna put fixed wireless. That's up to them, that we actually don't have any, we want them to, because that's how they're gonna make money to service the debt that we're allowing them to use. They could decide fixed wireless, they could decide that they're gonna start running fiber to the home from the fiber network. So I mean, we're extending the capacity with the expectation that that's what they're gonna do, because that's how they make money. Our primary motivation is we're getting access to the tower and the fiber for our communication system.
For the
For
law
enforcement,
emergency services.
the emergency services.
That's where I keep, I love emergency services, I really do, but, yes, and emergency is putting themselves out there, maybe responding to a dangerous situation, but there's extreme danger for citizens out there as well. So if we're just taking them at their word for it, why can't we just put that in the contract? To say you will do this.
There are a lot of hot mics, and I'm getting a lot of feedback, so if you guys could turn your microphones off.
Mr. Stralski's next.
I guess I'm old-fashioned type of guy here, and I'm sorry for fumbling my words, but this all started out as EMS for protection for the police, the sheriff, for ambulance service into the far-reaching parts of the county. I don't know how this got turned into a selling cellular service and selling broadband. I don't believe Sawyer County should be in the business of selling broadband, of selling cellular service. I think we should go back to option number one. I can't put my name on a $16 million wager. That's it.
Okay. Ms. Cecil?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's been any partnership with LCO Tribal Governing Board to see what their infrastructure plan looks like. Are we doing this and not having a partnership with them, or how it, because I'm assuming some of this is going to be located either running through LCO or be located on the reservation in some areas. So is there any, like, we cover half the debt, they cover half the debt, there's nothing like that?
We have not been approached.
And you haven't done
I
your,
was gonna talk to Mitch after about that.
but so are you speaking for the tribal board? Is that,
I'm just answering your question.
okay.
Governing board has not been approached by Bug Tussle.
Do you have an infrastructure plan already in place at all, or? So the county would just be taking this all on for the safety of the whole county. And I just am concerned, like, is there gonna be then a stop to some of the running of the fibers because of the tribal stance? I just wanna make sure we're looking at all angles, and, like, we have issues with other situations, and so then let's make sure that we're all working together on this.
There has not been on the broadband or the running of the fiber. The only communication we've had is with the radio station, not with the TGB, WOJB, because that's for our public safety communications network, that's one of the sites that's part of the plan, is to be on the radio tower. So we've got as far as verifying that there's space in the tower. We don't have an agreement yet on being on the tower or what that might cost yet, though.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with Bug Tussle.
If I can speak to a handful of things. How we got from emergency communications to this entire project is my fault. But the origin of that is when you are building the assets that you are looking to build for your emergency communications, it makes a lot of sense to leverage those as far as you can. So if you're building towers, think about how they work for your emergency communications, but also think about what other purposes towers serve. That being, in our context, the fixed wireless broadband product and the cellular product with a carrier as a partner. Consequently, when you are building that network, it is a lot more effective, it is a lot more reliable if you add fiber to that mix. So that's really the big transition phase. It's like, hey, if you want to do this, we have a program to do it right. I use that word program, which segues into my next answer. No, we have not engaged with LCO at this point. We have a number of tribal partners that we are engaged with in other counties, and I would be happy to talk to the LCO, but we have not done that at this point because this is how this program works and this is how the funding mechanism works. So it's very specific. It requires agreement between counties. And so that's how we come up with the kind of catalyst funding. But as we continue in the event this passes, we would continue to engage with local officials, whether those be municipal or tribal, to kind of continue to leverage off the assets. Because to Mr. Alberado's point is that's really what we're trying to do with this is get our foot in the door, get our assets in the ground, and then continue to leverage those as far as possible using whatever funding sources possible to ultimately make money to make the bond payments.
But some elaboration is, do any of those fibers run through LCO that you have mapped out? Do they run through the reservation? Because there could be hiccups there if you're not talking to them in proactive.
There can absolutely be hiccups there. We haven't had any yet, but tribes that we partner with have given other broadband providers hiccups. So I'm very familiar with how all of those pieces kind of fit together. To that end, no, we have not engaged with LCO prior to this. In the event the tribe is not interested in where our initial proposed fiber route is, we would move it. Obviously to not compromise their sovereignty by any means, but I don't expect that would be the case given the success we've had working with tribes in other areas.
How many cell phone towers do you have currently in the state of Wisconsin? And how many are you projected to build this year?
We currently operate 363 cell sites for AT&T. 45 of those are in Iowa. If anyone's better at math than I am, 328, something in that capacity, are in Wisconsin. Through the next phase of our plan with AT&T, that number is going to grow to 506. Not all of which are in Wisconsin. There's the Iowa footprint as well as some in southeastern Minnesota around Rochester. So those are what we operate for sites. As far as owned towers, which is probably more in the weeds than anyone cares, but those are very distinct terms to me specifically, as towers are steel and sites are equipment. So we operate about, call it 500 sites at year end for AT&T, and we'll have about 150 towers in our portfolio. We have monetized a lion's share of the towers that we operate for AT&T. So we built the towers, put our AT&T equipment on them, signed leases with ourselves, and then sold the towers to fund some of the AT&T work. But as we sit today, we have approximately 150 towers in our control.
Mr. Helwig, please, did you have more?
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions. Say all those red areas and everything that are proposed and your proposed broadband is, so just say all of it's functional. Would there still be areas in Sawyer County that wouldn't have broadband?
If in the event all of the grant work is done for the red sites and after our project, yes. Because our project does not approach the western side of the county to provide coverage near Hayward. Partially because there are already decent cellular options over here. There are already in a lot of areas, well, it'll be a shorter lift for someone like Norvado to pick that up in the BEAD cycle to expand their footprint and provide coverage in the northeastern corner. We're kind of filling our niche largely driven by what the needs were from the radio side, is let's build the towers where you guys want the towers built. You have stuff in Hayward, so we don't need to focus on Hayward.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned AT&T quite a few times. Are you going to be bringing in other carriers?
We have had the most success with AT&T in getting them to expand their rural footprint. We're engaged with Verizon and T-Mobile on a weekly basis. We have good inroads. We have co-locations from US Cellular, Verizon, and T-Mobile on a handful of sites that we have throughout the state. We haven't gotten any of them to do something holistic like AT&T has. So that's who we talk about the most. That's who we have the best relationship with, but we'll constantly be marketing our towers to say, hey, we built this tower here. you should evaluate putting equipment on it, which the tower we have in New Post is, and it's not turned on yet, and I learned that the hard way today, has Verizon equipment mounted on it, currently not doing anything and not allowing me to make calls on my way here. But as an example, a tower we built in Sawyer County, Verizon called one day and said, we'd like to put equipment on it.
And then, I don't know if you could answer this, or if we have anybody on board here or here, whatever. Could we put wireless on the towers that we would possibly build?
Yes. If there is a functional business case and there's enough of a public outcry for it, we have a lot of fixed wireless co-locations that are not on towers that we own. If the business case is there, I'd be happy to put equipment on it.
I'm saying, say if we didn't go with you and we built our own, could we put it?
Could you, as a broadband provider? Absolutely. Do you want to do that? I can't imagine.
Right.
Could we?
Well, yeah, I don't, yeah, not to sell it or whatever, but to have it out there accessible. And also, one last thing. What if we went with our plan, plan number one, and then we budgeted, say like next year for broadband in the other parts of the county?
There's always potential.
That's something to think about.
When you say broadband, just to clarify.
Or fiber.
Fiber, thank you.
Thank you.
That's the important part.
Yeah,
because
that's what I mean.
Our original plan, and probably starting out, it was microwave, like we have now where you throw it through the air. I think broadband is where anybody wants to get, because that's not susceptible to weather, just cuts and travels at the speed of light. But, because even right now, I'll just bring up the WOJB tower. In our discussions with them, we're probably looking at having to use microwave at that for a period of time, because there is no fiber anywhere near where that, I'm not sure where that tower is located, but apparently it's not real accessible, so we shouldn't expect to get fiber there anytime soon. So we're gonna end up probably with a mix of fiber and microwave as our backhaul, regardless of which proposal we start with.
So just a little background, I guess, real quick. You know, we were really close to saying yes to our own, and then Andy heard about Tussle. And then that just, you know, kind of grabbed everybody and got things going. But wouldn't you say that's correct, Ron? We were very, very close to saying, let's go with, we do it ourselves.
Yep. Mitchell's taken some of the blame, but I'll take the blame that we knew other counties were using Buck Tussle's infrastructure in their projects for public safety, which does lower our out-of-pocket cost up front.
Right, and in no
That's why
way
we're-
am I saying
Yeah.
that what you did was bad for us. No, I think it was great that we always got to bring in other opportunities and look at them and see what's available.
Yeah, I think it's opened up the opportunity to think bigger. And if, you know, my struggle with this is I know there's financial issues and things like that and risk, financial risk. But if we don't do this, I think we need to come up with a plan or an intention or an effort to improve, keep calling it cellular, to improve that service throughout the county. Because if it's not us, it's just, I don't see where it happens. And I'm redundant here, but the safety issue is not too far behind from the emergency services safety issue. Because if somebody's out there alone and they don't have cell service, EMS or not, that's an issue. So I think if we don't do this, we all have to, at least in our heads, think about what are we going to do down the road, whether it be a year from now or 2 years from now, to seriously address this big gap in our county.
Yes.
Could you, Mitchell, could you just recap that smaller project? How many miles, how many towers, and cost?
Yeah, and I was gonna ask that too, Andy, and the pros and cons of your $10 million option.
Yeah, so the $10 million option, I have the 16 versus the 10 here. Ignore my calculations on the right. Okay, so the only thing that changed about this sheet is those two numbers here. So the expectation for the 4 towers that we'd build plus the equipment for putting fixed wireless coverage on New Post, that amount is still gonna be roughly $1.5 million for what we'd invest in the tower side of this project. The fiber side goes from the original number of about 115, covering about 1,500 locations, to approximately 70 miles, covering about 660 locations. So the fiber construction cost goes from approximately 9.1, if you add in the last mile connectivity, call it 9.5, to about 6. As you boil those together, obviously there's the change is $3 million, but the sticker price is $6 million different, but that's what you get into the cost of issuance and the other kind of financing structures that as you decrease the project cost, it has a disproportionate effect on the ultimate amount of the bond that's issued. So the total amount comes down to a $10 million sticker price. Again, the project here, all of the blue towers are still in play. These 4 plus the equipment for the green one here. And then the light blue line would be what we'd propose for the fiber route. The only thing, again, you're losing here is your fiber redundancy. To answer your question, Andy, that tower is right here. So if you want fiber to it, it's not a significant increase in the event you were to go with the larger project to reach that fiber out there. And to answer your question, Supervisor Hessel, the green that is shown here is what is registered as the reservation. So there is some overlap on both sides where we would be working with the tribe to get those routes permitted.
So the smaller project is the light blue, or the
Smaller option is the light blue.
Mr. Bennett. So the difference for the proposal, if we do the one without the redundancy of the second fiber, what is that, the difference then for, under the first proposal or the second proposal, when we started talking about this, was we get rent-free for 30 years. They'll pay us roughly $30,000 a year for 30 years, which is $1.5 million, which would then offset what we're gonna pay for the sheriff's department for the. Does that change this?
Yeah, he'll give you it's gonna change the payback, that's for sure.
Yep, the amount that we pay on basis points in the original $16 million proposal is on average $40,600, which over the lifetime of the bonds would total about 1.2. And if that amount reduced to 10 million, the annual payment would be again on average 25,000, so it would total about 750,000. That's what this math is over here, and you get on a $10 million issuance, it's easy math, it's 40 basis points, so it's $40,000. To get the first 10 years is roughly half of that amount that you would receive. So obviously it decreases over time as the bonds are paid back.
So hopefully this is my final question before we go into closed session, but if we say yes, let's say we vote yes on this, but the LCO tribal government says you're not running fiber through the reservation, what are our options then? Do you have a plan B that you present to us? Because how do we say yes without the assurance that it can actually go through?
So ultimately what the project does is puts funding into a project fund that we are allowed to spend on broadband assets in Sawyer County with your approval. So in the event we cannot do this route because we're unable to permit it, the objectives for us are still going to be the same. We want to cover as many people as possible on the fiber to the home side, and we want to get as much of a robust network as we can. So the big loss again here is that we're losing this redundancy piece here. So I probably do something over here to fix the redundancy. So I just want to make sure that we're building a resilient network. If the tribe steps in and says that I can't do it here, I need to find somewhere else to create that redundancy, but there would be options there.
Yes.
Where does that leave us on the Wooddell and Meadowbrook sites?
You can have space on them, they're fine.
The 2 tower sites in red on the map, those are sites we've identified for the public safety network that we want to be on with the configuration from GenCom.
In the event you proceed with the program or not, there's definitely space on those towers for the county's co-location. In one situation, it's free. The other, it definitely would not be.
It's an important situation yeah, because it's Wooddale, Meadowbrook, Draper, and those 3 for sure. Depending on where the Draper Winter Tower goes, we might need another one there.
Cecil.
How did we ensure safety before all of this technology? Like, I mean, I'm just, we're putting a lot of debt onto our taxpayers to say we're gonna make it safer, but when was it not safe before? I mean, were people dying and I just didn't know about it? I mean, as far as before cell phones, before better radios for our police officers, I'm just making sure that we're doing our due diligence. And if we need to change our systems, not just technology, because technology is gonna keep getting ahead of us. And so how do we ensure that it's the safety measure and the technology that we all now need? That's where I struggle with, is it better or was it better before the government stepped in and said, hey, we're gonna do all this great technology and now you're safe?
I'm not sure if I'm supposed to answer that. I mean, I think the expectations have gone up, and I'm gonna defer to the sheriff because he's here tonight. I mean, that's where we started with this, is that there have been significant radio problems for our law enforcement EMS with our current configuration. And that's why we started with the need to improve it and to make sure we cover all corners of the county and into buildings and the places where we have significant structures that need the radio signal. What they did before, I don't know if I have a good answer to it, but I would just say, I do think expectations for, because technology is available, that we should be taking advantage of it. And that's, to Mr. Righeimer's point, it's not just law enforcement, it's, everybody has a cell phone now, everybody would like it to work wherever they're at. And so there's a frustration level that's out there. I don't know if I can ask the sheriff if he wants to give me I mean, he's obviously been around a lot longer than I have to give you a historic perspective.
I think there is a couple differences. One, there's been quite an increase in population in the last 40, 50 years in the county. That's a big part of it. Expectations are another part of it. But with that, when you talk about cellular use, that's really increased. And look at the people who have dropped their landlines. And many people don't have a landline anymore. They're dependent on their cell phone. If they don't have cell phone coverage in their homes or the communities they live in, if they can't call us when they need us, then we're not going to be able to do them any good. As well as the other thing that does benefit law enforcement is all of our squads have a mobile data computer in them. That is run off cellular phone system, Verizon. We're currently contracted under Verizon. And so when we get into areas where there is not cell phone coverage, our MDCs do not function as they should or could as well. So our function on the street is affected by cell phone use as well. When you talk about more people dying or whatever, I mean, in the 50s, they didn't have police radios for the most part, including the state patrol. I think community settings and what happened on the street was a lot different 50 years ago than what it is today as well. So I think when it comes to the critical calls that we're dealing with today, Sawyer County didn't have a SWAT team 50 years ago either. And our SWAT team is pretty active in those critical situations. We're very dependent on communication with law enforcement to officer, as well as law enforcement to dispatch and the other resources we have. So it is very critical and it has changed over time.
Mr. Elding.
Sheriff, would you want to give your opinion on this situation?
Well, the 15 of you are blessed with the task of balancing the budget. And we respect that. I mean, as far as, the resources we have, I think they laid it out pretty well. And I think Administrator Alvarado, has gone above and beyond and tried to bring in extra resources here to benefit all of us. And I'm probably not the specialist there in the detailed side of the finances, nor the added service. I'm not the most techie as well.
Yeah.
And Andy, tell me, so if we do not go with bug tussle in any way, it's gonna cost the county more money? Is that correct?
Yeah, roughly out of pocket, we're estimating, based on the current design, it's $1 million more out of pocket.
But less liability?
Correct. If we do not go with bug tussle, then we're at the point of needing to move ahead to build our own towers. And I should say that's building our own towers with most likely microwave connectivity rather than fiber. Which the techie people, the radio says that they can make that microwave is just as good as broadband. There's differing opinions, but, or different as fiber.
You want to go to the Dorothea plant. Put you on the spot.
I gave my opinion last month, or last.
Andy, you mean we can build these towers for $1 million?
Yes. The towers we need.
The towers we need.
Yes.
Right, and when you said, Andy, when you said $1 million more, that's not $1 million more than the 16 million we were talking, that was.
No, it's 3 million.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that.
Our estimate, right, based on the design is 2.75 if we build our own towers, use microwave. And of that 2.75, roughly 1.75 is just the radio cost and the microwave cost. The towers are about $1 million of that.
So, and how many towers are we thinking?
3.
3?
Yeah.
And that's gonna, I mean, because they were talking, what, 4, 6, something like that? Our 3 is gonna make it the same connectivity as?
Because there's the original 7 towers was filling in the gaps where there was a need for broadband. So we need towers in Southern County, in the eastern side of the county. There's included a couple additional towers like in Moose Lake and I can't remember, kind of the middle of the county, where we have, and we anticipate the middle of the county will be covered by putting our equipment on the WOJB radio tower. That covers a very significant portion of the county. And that's the, just the public safety, that's the proposal you looked at originally from GenCom, was those tower sites, the LCO, WOJB tower, the tower we already use out on Radio Hill on County B, and the Hayward Water Tower. Which is going down. Yeah, we've already put our nose into that and have tried to make sure that we're not forgotten. Because the city is, and we've talked to the company they've met with, have conveyed to the city that our equipment is up there, to remind them of that. And that if they do put up a new tower, that they should hold the spot for public safety on that tower. Yes, yeah, that was a surprise last week.
Are we still having closed session discussion on this? So can we go into closed session so we're not?
Yep, just want to make sure there's
rehashing?
no more questions. Ben and Andy, you guys are there still. Anything else we should address in closed session, or excuse me, open session before we go to closed? All right. We'll put Mitchell out. If you want to bring him back in, we can do that. Need the motion.
Can the sheriff stay here?
Yeah, sheriff, and I'd like Mike to stay too.
A motion by Mr. Helwig, second by Mr. Schuman, to go into closed session, discuss a possible action pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851E to enter closed session for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public property, the investment of public funds, or conducting a specific business, whatever competitive or bargaining reasons are required, a closed session, public safety, radio network, and bug tussle partnership. We have a motion, we have a second, need roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Hessel?
Yes.
Mr. Newman?
Yes.
Mr. Helwig? Mr. Duffy? Mr. Savitsky?
Yes.
Mr. Van Etten?
Yes.
Mr. Haney?
Yes.
Mr. Righeimer?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsley?
Yes.
Mr. Buckholz?
Yes.
Mr. Sarowski?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We're now in closed session once we close the doors. Alex, we're off.
Ben and Andy, we're just passing out the information.
So the board has came back into open session after some discussion.
I make a motion to go forward the bug tussle for 10 million, the 10 million option.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. Rubikheimer, second by Mr. Newman to go with bug tussle for 10 million. On a roll call vote?
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Hessel,
Yes.
Mr. Newman,
Yes.
Mr. Helwig,
Yes.
Mr. Duffy. No. Mr. Savitsky,
Yes.
Mr. Van Etten,
Yes.
Mr. Haney,
Yes.
Mr. Ringweiss,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsley,
Yes.
Mr. Buckles,
No.
Mr. Sarowski.
No.
Motion failed.
Thank you. Number 17, correspondence, reports, conferences, and meetings. Anybody have anything to add there?
No.
Our next county board meeting, we will be having on their airport master plan, providing it comes out of Public Works. We'll have a presentation from Indian Head, and we'll have the short-term rental, and we'll have the budget. Anybody have anything else they would like to add? Yes.
Can we have our original plan for communication stuff on
Oh, sure. Yep,
on the agenda?
yep.
Could we have the, our communication plan number 1 that Ron is proposing to be on the agenda?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Newman, Schuman, do you have something?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you for your valuable time.